that we have to at least be educated on a simple, basic level, at least so we'll know how to support those organizations that are making the moves towards reparations and that are also facilitating spaces for these conversations and putting political action together for the conversation. Now, one thing that I've said before about the reparations conversation that I think has been missing, because I think it's a disservice when we speak about reparations if we don't identify who we want to cut the check. So we can't just make the blanket statement the government's going to cut us a check. That we're just dependent on the government just to say, okay, we owe you money, we're going to write the check. If we want to be practical about this demand for reparations, then we have to actually identify those companies that most benefited from the enslavement of our people. Because those cargo ships that had our ancestors, those weren't government ships. Those were private ships owned by private people and companies. The people who benefited the most when it comes to monetarily speaking, some of them are still in business, including Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, AIG, Aetna, Canadian American Railroad. The list goes on. There's dozens of businesses and corporations that we can identify right now that made a tremendous amount of wealth and parlayed that into political power as well because of the enslavement of our people. So when we're speaking from a monetary basis, I think it's important to continue to do the investigation necessary to identify those companies, identify the wealth that they have now, identify how much wealth they accumulated through the 257 years of the enslavement, through the Jim Crow, through the redlining, through all the different mechanisms that they use to parlay that wealth. We need to identify these things so when we make a legitimate demand and we make specific numbers that we demand, we'll have a basis to back what we're saying. Because if we continue to have the rhetoric and the conversation that has been, basically the government's going to cut the check. Not only is that rhetoric limiting how many of our own people think that reparations is actually tangible, but it also creates more of a division with other races who will rightfully so. We know that white people and other races did benefit from the enslavement of our people, but we also know that all of them didn't actually profit. So we have to make that distinction. And I believe when we make that distinction, what we'll see is there'll be more people that will actually push for the reparations or at least be neutralized and won't be resistant to the idea of reparations. And that will help the ball get rolling a little bit more. I'm starting to see that a lot more people across the board are starting to actually open their mouth and speak upon the reparations subject. I'm seeing white people making videos about it. I'm seeing different immigrants from different nationalities that are speaking on the fact that reparations is due. I'm seeing natives speak on it. I'm seeing Latinos, so-called Latinos, speak on it. And I know a lot of people think that, hey, it's not their business. They shouldn't be speaking on it. But look, we want all hands on deck. We don't need them to make executive decisions on how reparations look. But it doesn't hurt to have the conversation coming out of everyone's mouth, because that puts more pressure on the government to put more pressure on these corporations that we identify. And if we're going to make a tangible push towards reparations in our lifetime, this is the type of alliances that we have to make. And if you've heard me speak on the ADOS before, then you know that although I back them, I support the ADOS in principle, I do understand that there are some of us who are privy to reparations, and there's some newcomers that aren't as privy, depending on when they migrated. However, the reason why I'm against the rhetoric of the anti-immigrant rhetoric that they speak when it comes to those of African descent is because I don't think that will actually be a factor when it comes to reparations, because it would be so easy to disqualify them. The records are already being held, and there are plenty of ways to disqualify those who wouldn't qualify for reparations. Anybody? Okay, we got somebody who wants to join the conversation. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get to that before we continue on with that. Let's go ahead and go to area code 517 on Blackistand Radio. What's your name?
Hey, much love, my brother. How you been, man?
Hey, how you doing, family?
I'm doing great, man. You know, just enjoying the show and stuff like that. I don't want to add on about the reparations thing that, you know, many people can look towards Australia. You know, Australia, they got their reparations. The Aboriginals, they got their reparations. Their reparation movement been going on longer than ours have. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And that's how they set it up was they call themselves the Stolen Generations. And they got a Stolen Generation organization set up by the people where the money gets funded to. You get what I'm trying to say? $5 million of that is just going to...
Say that again. Break that down a little bit.
They got Stolen Generations, that's what they call themselves. They got organizations set up by the people, the Aboriginal people, you know what I'm saying, that goes to, the funding goes directly towards them, towards these organizations.
Okay.
$5 million of that is just for mental health alone.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Another $7 million, another $1 million goes towards burials. You know what I'm saying? They free burial plots and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? And they set up a government service or like a VA form. You know what I'm saying? Inside the institution of the government with an advisory committee. So that's how their reparation package went down in Australia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from that. Go ahead, brother. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Another thing, though, about the Australians, though, which backs up your point you was talking about, which ADOS, to me, does not have, they was a nation. You know what I'm saying? They got national flags, all type of stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You know, they got a national constitution, whoop-de-whoop. They established themselves as a nation. Because they was that before the white man came to Australia anyway.
Right.
You know, so they got their national flags and all type of stuff like that. And that's the type of thing that we missing when they go away from the, I guess, the black nationalism concept. You feel what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because the ADOS people, when I be watching Yvette Curl, she always got herself draped in the flag and so this is our flag and all that stuff like that. Yeah, but we can have that could be our flag.
You mean
have
the
our own
American
separate
flag?
national flag. Excuse me?
What flag does she have?
The American flag, red, white, and blue.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? But you can, that's people, but you can still have the African flag up there. You feel what I'm trying to say? The black,
exactly.
The red, black, and green. Another thing too, while you was going through the list about the ADOS, many people don't know that the James Foreman and SNCC, he wrote the Black Manifesto back in 1969. He dropped it on May 4th, 1969, and it was way more colder and way more direct than what was being said. You feel me? Instead of attacking the government, they attacked the churches and all and the Jewish synagogues.
Okay.
To get the money out the church, because the church got a lot of money.
Yes, they did, especially the Catholic.
You know what I'm saying? Right. Even at school, Georgetown University was started by Catholic priests, Jesuits.
It was also and it was built by slaves as well.
Right, but they was the one that helped put the funding into it. It was a church school basically.
Okay.
It's like Harvard and all the rest when they got started. You feel what I'm trying to say?
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. So the thing about it, you know what I'm saying? They had the establishment of a Southern Land Bank. And another thing they had establishment, what they asked for an establishment was an establishment of a Black Anti-Defamation League. Like how the Jews got it. When you say anything negative about being anti-Semitic, what they consider anti-Semitic, the League would jump on them. They asked for the establishment of that, So when you're going through the things about reparations, the older one, if you ever get a chance to read the Black Manifesto by James Foreman, it was a lot more harder and a lot more direct to the point about what to do and where the money will go to.
Right, and that's what I like about the NAARC 10-point program, because it tackles some of those things that you're speaking about. In a matter of fact, so and that's why I say, like, when we look at this, it's kind of like when you're speaking about the Aboriginals over there in Australia. It's important that we include our own government. Now, that doesn't mean that every single black person has to join the government or even move to said land. They could still be nationals wherever they decide to domicile. They could still stay in Chicago or wherever they want to stay and still be a national and still have some of the protections and benefits that we would get from having our own government. But if we don't at least have that, then it doesn't really set us up for generational wealth, because at the end of the day, when the money's gone, if we don't have anything to give to our next generation, then we're in the exact same situation.